Hey guys, Sleepy Reader here, Damien. I'm coming at you in a bit of a grumpy mood. After reading Watchmen, which I did kind of in maybe too great of a depth because I was involved in this tag team review of the 12 issues of Watchmen, I'm having trouble reading comic books, or more to the point, I'm having trouble reading superhero comic books. I'm finding myself, I'm just really grumpy about it. uh, I'm just not happy with what I'm reading, and I feel like the other makers of comic books are lazy or just or that superheroes are stupid. But I don't really think that. I mean, I love superheroes, so I just at the moment feel quite grumpy. I was reading this Batman annual, which under other circumstances I think what I would enjoy it. It's a lovely little comic book that relates or redoes the origin of a classic villain, Mr. Freeze, and it moves interestingly through time, and it's always fun to focus on the villain. It has lots of cool scenes, but it has a big revelation at the end, but it seemed to get to its revelation too easily, and it didn't make enough of it, and it didn't give us as many layers of what all this means about Dr. Freeze, or what it might mean to Batman, or to other things in comic book in the Batman DC universe. It just seemed thin compared to Watchmen, and it seemed like someone like Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons, the authors of Watchmen, tried harder. They pushed that to that extra level. They said, "What else can we put in here? How else can we make this story richer?" And it seems like if the writer Scott Snyder had tried a little harder, he had lots of great elements in here, and he could have given us even more in the same number of pages. I have no complaints about the artist in this particular case. I don't really know what the process is. I kind of get the feeling of uh, of minimal collaboration between artist and writer. That probably the writer wrote this script and then the artist illustrated it. But I could be all wrong on that. But another one of the strong feelings from Watchmen is of this incredible collaboration between writer and artist. I read Minutemen and I love Darwin Cook's artwork, and I couldn't even know how to react to it. One minute I loved it, the next minute it seemed totally flat and meaningless to me. With Darwin Cook, who's also the writer, not taking any chances, it seems, in the first issue, and not having anything new to say, just telling us exactly what we already know from The Watchmen. And another part of me thought, oh, well, that'll be fun because I enjoyed Watchmen, and this will just be a new way to enjoy the same story. And isn't that a lot of the times what comic books is about? But it wasn't clicking for me so well this time. Um, and it does seem like Alan Moore works harder. Um, it also sometimes seems like he's a genius, and I kind of played on that idea in my review. I do think they're kind of two kinds of geniuses, and it's hard to be the first kind, the kind of the primary kind who comes up with a brand new idea and does something that no one ever thought of before. Maybe, the creators of Superman, Siegel and Schuster, or a lot of the Jack Kirby work, or going back into literature, the creators of Gilgamesh and mythology, or King Arthur, or Beowulf, and in science fiction, Jules Verne and H.G. Wells, and some of the people in the golden age of science fiction who came up with this stuff first, the first people to think of a galactic empire and stuff. To me, those are kind of the primary geniuses, primal geniuses who come up with something new. And then there's the refiners, and they may be equally as brilliant or maybe more brilliant, but less lucky to not have created something brand new. But I think Alan Moore is definitely in that level. And I think you can look at those people and see what they're doing. You can see them building up the layers and connecting the dots and stuff. I suppose in literature, Shakespeare's the ultimate, secondary genius. He didn't tell any original stories, and he reused everybody's ideas, but he still combined it in such a way that tons of people think is genius. So, does Watchmen make me feel like comic books are dumb or that superheroes are dumb? Hopefully this will kind of pass. Uh, it, Reading this takes me back. I remember drifting into a comic book store at some period when I didn't have that much money and finding some early issue of Watchmen and puzzling over it. And I think I bought one issue, maybe issue 2 or 3 or 4, and reading it, and then not getting it at first, and only clicking when I started reading the material at the back, and realizing I was reading something with rich layers and ambitions beyond the regular comic book. And sometimes old comic books would have these little text pieces about the hero or something that weren't really that important to the story. They were just filler, or there was something about the postal regulations back then that you needed to have that text in it. But but after puzzling over that issue of Watchmen, I realized something more was going on here, and I was able to get the other issues. And as soon as the trade came out, I bought that. It may be the first trade I ever bought that I can remember. Well, Son of Origins and Origins of Marvel Comics, but the first sort of trade graphic novel that I bought. And then I lent it to tons of people. I almost didn't get it back many times. But once I got used to Watchmen, it wasn't a total surprise. There was kind of a revolution going on, I think, in comic books at that time, and had been going on for a number of years. And what it was the comic book stores were taking over, and you could sell direct-only comic books to the comic book stores and make money off of that. And that allowed people to do a lot more experimenting. It was the first time you really saw these maxi series and mini series and things intended to be one-off graphic novels, things that would have a beginning and an end, and that imagined a readership who really cared about comic books, rather than just imagining kids finding comic books on spinner racks and growing out of them within a half a year or something. And I think that created a huge renaissance in comic books, and maybe ultimately it was comic books' doom too, as it have slowly cut comic books off from renewing its audience with kids, and it became more and more aimed at the people who already knew about comics. But at first, there were incredible things being done, and I think I don't think that Watchmen ruined comic books. I think it opened the way for lots of people as writers, to take it seriously, and readers to take it seriously, and to look for more comic books that meant something. And I don't know if that's slipped away from us a little bit. I don't really think it does. I think I've just become grumpy about it right now. I hope that's it. And I've just, noticed the comic books that aren't trying very hard. I think that Watchmen is not only a great comic book, it's probably a great science fiction novel, maybe one of the greatest science fiction novels I've ever read. It's just so complete. There's so much going on in it. It makes such a big commentary about human nature, human progress, and satirizes politics and human relationships and motivations. So where does that leave me? Anyway, I think I'll feel better after I vented this. So thanks for listening, and I'll try to get back to some normal reviews soon.